Good evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in tonight for the Department of Emergency Management and Security monthly webinar. We're going to be doing it a little different than our past months. Tonight, we actually have two guest speakers. We have Tracey with the Fire and Rescue Department, and we have Susan with Consumer Services. So thank you for being here, ladies. We're really grateful for your time and your effort to be here.
Glad to be
And
here.
our guest speakers are actually going to give presentations today. So we're going to start with Susan. But first, Susan, tell a little bit about yourself, and then Tracey, tell a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get right into Tracey or Susan's presentation.
My name is Susan Jones. I'm actually the branch manager with Fairfax County Consumer Affairs.
And I'm
Tracey.
Deputy Chief Tracey Reed of Special Operations and Community Risk Reduction with the Fire and Rescue Department.
Thank you, ladies. And Susan, the floor is yours.
All right. Okay. All right, and we will get started. I want to say that I'm with Consumer Affairs, and I'd like to take a second just to tell a little bit about what our agency does. We actually mediate complaints against businesses where the consumer transaction takes place in Fairfax County. So we do, every one of you are consumers. And my topic today is shopping online, whether it's in person, online. If you do a transaction in Fairfax County, more than likely it is something that we can handle. We handle home improvement, auto, medical billing, dry cleaning. Our number one is landlord tenant. So we do get a lot of calls and complaints on that issue. We do have what we call a consumer specialist of the day. They're there Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30. If you've got a consumer question, please call in our office. If it's not something that we can assist with, then we will definitely try to find you the best possible resource. We're really big on customer service. We like to answer your questions. And of course, a big part of what we do is outreach. And Mariah was very kind enough to invite us here today. So if you have a group out there and you might have a consumer topic that you're interested in, you can call our number at 703 222 8435, and we will be happy to come out in person or online like this to do a presentation. So today I'm going to be talking about protecting yourself while shopping online. As you know, during COVID, it hit and a lot of people, we would go to the malls, we would go to the store, we would do our shopping in person. But with COVID coming, suddenly people didn't want to get out. They wanted to protect themselves and make sure everything's okay. So suddenly we're doing online shopping. My mother lovingly refers to me as the Amazon girl because I get onto Amazon. If she tells me I need something, I just get right on there and order it for her. And she's always amazed it comes the next day. So, it became a convenience. And even though, people are getting more out and we are doing more in person things, people still want to shop online. So let me do this first screen. Oops, wrong thing. So sorry. Learning as I go. So online shopping tips. Here are some of the things I'm going to talk about. Shopping with people you trust, make sure your website's secure, find out the privacy policy, check the return policy, account creation, passwords, always use a credit card, and of course, never give your bank information. So, shopping where you trust. That means if you're going online, if you get an email and, because once you start going shopping, a lot of times they know what you're doing and they're following your interest. And and suddenly it pops up an email like, oh, I see you're doing this. And it could be from Kohl's, it could be from anywhere. And you're thinking, wow, and it says go ahead and click online. So you click on it. The problem is the minute you click on that link, you don't know if it's safe or secure or who you're actually clicking that link to. So you always go to somewhere that you trust. You're the one that needs to go ahead and initiate it. So if you're wanting to shop at DSW or whatever or Amazon, you should be the one to initiate it and actually look for that link and click on it. Like I said, they can do all sorts of pages that make, like tonight looks very official. They can do that. You have to really watch and make sure, that that is an actual place that you want to shop. And of course, once again, I'm saying if you get any pop ups, you know, they're asking for your finance. You have to be very careful. If you click on it, they might take over. We have what's called the tech support scams. And that's what happens. Some link pops up, somebody clicks on it, and suddenly now they have control of your laptop. And you might have had passwords stored there or your personal information. So you have to be very careful about that and just make sure you know where you're shopping. All right. If you are shopping online and you see the screen, and I'm looking at mine and also my slide, the first things you want to look for is the nice little secure lock. Okay. And that's saying that this website is as secure as it can be. Realize there are people very sharp out there, hackers, but that lets you know it's secure. And then you also can look out and make sure, you always want to make sure it says HTTPS colon. The S means it is secure. So you've got two things that you're definitely wanting to look for to make sure that it's accurate, it's where you are where you need to be, and it's as secure as you can make it. Then also, you also want to make sure, like in this case where your website is that it's letting you know it is legit. You're looking around, making sure that everything is correct. This one says it's fairfaxcounty.gov. That's where we work. So if you were on DSW, you want to kind of check and make sure everything is clear and to the point. Also, it's like shopping. If you're going in person and you're going to buy, especially a high dollar purchase, you of course want to know, what is their policies? What are their, uh, refund type of things. You want to make sure you're always looking in the store. Well, that's the same thing with online. You always want to check and make sure it's like, what exactly is their policy? Does it say, once you're on our website, any information that you provide us, we're going to sell it to somebody else and you're going to get bombarded with more emails? Of course, you don't want that to happen. So always make sure, and sometimes it's usually at the very bottom. Go searching for it. Like I said, if this is a place that you're going to shop and you want to be a part of, you always want to check that personal privacy. And then, of course, right here, that's usually where it is. And a lot of times it's a lot of information. I advise you take the time. Like I said, especially if you're doing a high dollar, now you can shop online for cars. Not saying you could have never done that before, but of course, that's Carvana and the rest of them. It's like you see those commercials where it's like, wow, I can order a whole car and they just come and deliver it. It's a great thing, but you want to make sure when you're on that website, is that the correct website? Am I protected? Is this going, if they have my personal information, is it going to be secure? So it's always important to make sure that you have that information. Okay. Oops, I think I went. Hold on. So sorry. Return policies. Like I said, you go shopping, you always want to know the return policy. If you're going over to the mall and you go into a store and you see a sign that says all sales are final, well, guess what? That's exactly what that means. And we teach a lot in the high schools and they don't kind of get that. They're like, is that true? And it's like, yes, if they tell you all sales are final, do not walk out that door because that purchase is now yours. Well, the same thing's online. You want to check and see what it is that you want to do for your refund policy. Because sometimes they'll say, here you've done it online, but sometimes it's like, okay, in order for you to get it, you have to come to our store. Now, of course, if the place is somewhere else in the country, no, you're not going to have to drive and return it. But if it's a local store, they might say, unfortunately, for refunds, you have to come into the store. Or I've seen some where it's like, well, in order for you to do that, you're going to have to return it in the original box, unopened, and it's going to cost you the shipping. You need to know that before you go and do a refund policy. So make sure you're comfortable. If you're not happy with it, you need to find that. Seasonal merchandise. I mean, here it was Halloween. You would never have known it was Halloween because I think at midnight or prior to that, it turned over to Christmas. I guess that there is no Thanksgiving anymore because I think they kind of skipped that and went right to Christmas. So a lot of times when you do seasonal things, you have to be very careful because once you buy it, it is yours. And a lot of times there can be a restocking fee. I know on larger items like refrigerators and things like that, you order online. Well, sure, you can return it, but then there's a 35% restocking fee. So if that's the case, you want to be very sure that what you've purchased is what you want to have because then it's going to cost you to return it. And like I said, money is tight these days. So you need to make sure you're looking at all of these things. Passwords. I can't say enough about passwords. Um, we just did through Fairfax County, we had Cyber Week, and I actually attended some training in the boardroom. And it was quite interesting because a big thing was, of course, your passwords. And I know at my age, I like said, sometimes it's hard to remember these things they are talking about. You can download where you can store your passwords safely. I would recommend that. At one time, I had a little booklet and put all my passwords, not very safe. I know better. So, of course, I got rid of it. But you need to make sure that your passwords are protected. They always talk about, you're doing a capital letter, a small letter, a phrase, you need to mix it up and you don't need to use the same password every time. That is something that we also do. It's like, well, I'll just use the same one and I'll change one letter. You've got to be careful because there's hackers out there and they are constantly looking for ways to get in there. So please, when they say do a strong password, and a lot of times you will see online when they say, do you want to create, an account and a password, a lot of times they will actually mark it where it says weak, and then you want to get to strong. And if you can come up with a phrase that you can remember, then do it. And I know it's tough, but then find a secure location to put your passwords, because if you're changing constantly, if you're purchasing a lot online, you need to have also a secure location where you can keep your passwords. So it's definitely very important to know that you do that. And of course, like everybody else, it is easier to remember your birthdays or your addresses or anniversaries. Unfortunately, that information a lot of times is not very hard to find. We are on YouTube and Facebook. I mean, without you knowing it, you could put something on there and say, of course, everybody does the happy birthday. Well, now everybody knows, and then somebody says, oh, happy 59th birthday. Well, that's not hard to figure out how old you are. So here you've got the date and the birth date. Somebody's got that information. So you just need to be very careful and watch what you actually do. All right. And then, of course, we always recommend credit card. Okay, I just had a segment on we do have a consumer connection program that you're welcome to watch on Facebook, but our last one we had was cryptocurrency. And I can honestly say, even listening to the program, I didn't quite understand it, but a lot of people are using cryptocurrency to pay for things. So we recommend credit cards because you do have the protection behind it. So if you have something go wrong, you can contact your credit card company, you can dispute it and say, I didn't purchase it. I can honestly say the other day I purchased something online. I went to pay for it with my credit union credit card and it said declined. And I thought, well, I thought it was me. So I thought maybe I just put the numbers in wrong. So I did it again and it declined. Next thing you know, I'm getting this phone call and it says, We're from Nextmark, blah, blah, blah. Here's your number. We're doing a fraud alert. We're just making sure. And of course, my first thought was, well, is that a scam? So I called the local credit union and she was able to look up my account and she said, yes, we were just making sure that this wasn't done fraudulently. Go ahead and call that number. And she verified it. And she says, they gave you a number. Go ahead and tell them. And sure enough, that's what they did. And she asked me a series of questions. And of course, the last one being, were you coerced? And I said, no, I was not. It was a purchase I wanted to do. And she said, well, then we will release the credit card and you can go ahead and make that purchase. I thought that was great. So if you have a credit card company, whether it's your credit union or whatever else, and they're looking out for you, that's a good credit card to make sure that you are protected if something goes wrong. And like I said, they a lot of times will, if for some reason your identity is stolen, a lot of times if purchases are made, you might not be responsible for them, or that if you are, it's just a small amount. So that's why it's always wise to do credit cards, because your debit cards and things like that, the minute you put it in there, the funds are gone. If they tell you to do gift cards, wire transfers, I'm telling you, those are the first marks, red flags. That is a scam. So just be very careful. And if you can, use your credit card, because you do definitely can check it. And you also want to, check your bank statements on a regular basis. Just make sure you're doing that. Make sure if you made that purchase, make sure it went through and everything is okay. Okay. Sometimes, like Amazon and some of these other places, when you've ordered a package, a lot of times they will send you something and it can be fake. And they'll say, hey, I know you're waiting for your purchase. It would be pretending to be a business like UPS, FedEx, some of the other ones. Avoid clicking on it. Okay. You don't want to click on anything. I know you just might have made that purchase. You think, oh, a lot of times I do it and they send it through your text message and they tell you, we're working on your order, but there's not any link or anything like that for you to click on. Anytime there's a link, just please don't click on it because you just don't know where it's going to lead you. And that's why I said it's called a phishing scam. And that's what happens when these pop ups come up all the time. They will take your personal information. They will take over your laptop. So just be very, very careful. Avoid clicking on anything that you should not. And if you have some problems with fraud, here are some things. Here are some places. Of course, the Federal Trade Commission, which is reportfraud.ftc.gov. If it's a financial type issue, then you can call the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And then, of course, you can call the Better Business Bureau. Now, if you have any issues or have any questions, of course, here's our slide. Once again, you can call us at 703-222-8435. We will let you know, yes, we believe it's a scam, and we will also tell you where we believe you should, the best places to report it. So hopefully this was informative, very basic information, but it's just something that you need to do every time when you're shopping online. Just, I can remind it, be safe. People out there are taking shots to protect themselves. Well, please do the same when you're on your laptop or wherever your phone. Make sure you have like the antivirus and everything to protect you to keep yourself safe because we do a lot of online shopping and you don't want anybody to get your personal information. So, just like I said, be smart, be safe, and good luck.
So, Susan, I actually have a question for you.
Sure.
What how you talked about how the holiday season is really starting to show in all these businesses. Do you see an uptake in these online shopping scams when the holiday season is happening and everyone's really getting ready to give gifts to their families?
I think, I would say yes, but it's more like every scam. I mean, you work for emergency management. We have a flood. Suddenly, we're getting those scams. I mean, right now, we went to Mariah and I were at a senior center this morning, and everybody that came by the table. The grandparent scam, it's the online text scam, the dating scam. There are so many scams out there that yes, you have to be more careful around the holidays and make sure that you are going to a trusted site. But I mean, come after Christmas and stuff, it's going to be the IRS scam because then suddenly taxes are going to be popular. So it's amazing what scammers do. I mean, they even do like utilities, and nothing is more scary. You get a scam or an email pop up and say, you've not paid your utility bill. We're going to turn off your services if you don't click on this, link and immediately pay this bill. Well, who wouldn't be scared? Or we've had ones where people have called in and said, you missed jury duty. And because you did, you're going to go to jail. You need to contact our office and pay this fine. Well, yes, nobody wants to go to jail. So, so yes, I could say holidays, any major event, or we just have scammers out there. And unfortunately, it's constant, and you just have to be very, diligent and making sure you understand it is a scam.
See, I am so glad that we have people like you because I went straight to just holiday scams. I did not go to, tax season right after. The fact that we have people like you, Susan, that really, think about all the things that the rest of us take for granted that make us a little more suspectable to scammers. You know,
Yes, and unfortunately, yeah, consumers do call our office and I'm also part of the Silver Shield task force and they do with the solicitors and the whole scam thing and it's the same type of thing. People take advantage of you. And what I do find a lot of times is that our seniors, you know, yes, when they're taking it's a lot more money. Why? Because they've been working a lot longer and they have more money. However, it is our younger generation. So if you are somebody that is savvy and remind them because they like to put everything out there, on YouTube or anything else. And they need to be very careful because they don't understand. You can very easily be taken. and you're working and you've got money and you sure don't want somebody else to get it. So yeah, you just have to let people know and be aware of those things.
That is so true. I can say that before, I continued my education, I was trying to be a nanny on care.com actually, and I remember one of the things that happened is I got this weird message saying before I could be considered I had to deposit this check into an ATM. It had to go only into an ATM. It could not go to a person. I went to a bank teller because at that age I was like, I don't know how to do that. And,
thank goodness.
yeah, and then the bank teller was like, I'm gonna rip this in half now.
Yes.
A little nicer than that, but you were completely right.
It is, yeah, you just have to be very careful because, thankfully stores now a lot of times are, people are going up and they're buying all sorts of gift cards. Well, if it's not a holiday, most people are not going and buying all sorts of these gift cards. And a lot of times they're saying, okay, why are you needing this gift card? I'm not meaning to get into your business. But then somebody will say, well, my grandson had a wreck and he's in jail. And they said, I have to come and get these Target gift cards. Well, no. So that's a first clue. But people, yes, they know how to tug on your emotion. And so sometimes you're just in panic mode. So you got to stop and think and, make that phone call. If they've called and said, and you have grandchildren, say, thank you very much. Well, first of all, don't answer the phone. That we always tell people don't answer the phone or don't answer an email, but always check to make sure, because they're very persuasive and that's what they do. They can talk you into whatever. So you just have to be careful.
Well, thank you, Susan. I think Tracey and I can both agree that that was super informative, and you just think of things in a way that we don't. So we're really, really glad to have people like you.
Well, I appreciate it. And like I said, any questions, please, call our office. We're there Monday through Friday.
Thank you, Susan. You have a great rest of your night, and then we are going to start giving the floor to Tracey.
Good luck, Tracey.
So everyone, Tracey is going to be giving us a talk about cooking safety, specifically Thanksgiving safety, I believe. Correct, Tracey?
Yes, both.
Well, that is huge. We always have children around at Thanksgiving. We have all sorts of generations around. The kitchen is packed. We're happy to see our family that maybe we haven't seen in a couple years during COVID. So this is huge. So take it away. The floor is yours.
Thank you for the introduction. And yes, so as we're welcoming back after COVID, hopefully families are able to gather safely together. We look forward to seeing everybody, but yeah, there are some challenges to that. So we just want to make sure that everybody is safe, especially since maybe you've been dealing with family members or friends in smaller numbers the past few years. And like I said, I'm Tracey Reed with Fairfax County Fire and Rescue Department. We're going to talk about kitchen safety and, like we said, a little bit more Thanksgiving safety. So cooking fires is the leading cause of fires and injuries from 2015 to 2019. And that's national statistics, but that's also statistics in Fairfax County. So that applies to us also. And Thanksgiving is the peak time for home cooking fires, followed by Christmas Day and Christmas Eve. So we want to prevent those, but cooking fires is overall the number one, like I said, for property damage and for injuries. And so that's why it's an important topic. The biggest cause of cooking fires is unattended cooking. And that can happen for multiple reasons. People just unintentionally get distracted. So they put something on the stove or they put it in the oven and they walk away and they start, interacting with family or guests or watching TV or doing other tasks and then just completely forget about it. And then something happens where the cabinets light on fire or there's towels nearby the burners or something like that. Another thing we have is don't cook when you're under the influence. So we'll see a number of people who maybe go out and enjoy some beverages or enjoy some beverages at home. And I don't know why, usually it's frozen pizza, but they put it in the oven and then they fall asleep. And then the next thing you know, we're going to those fires. So whether you're tired, don't cook when you're tired, don't cook when you're intoxicated. And little things, if you have to walk away, set an alarm, one of those old kitchen timers or an alarm on your phone, something to remind you that you had something in the oven. And all right, so what we talked about, be on alert. Like I said, if you're sleepy or consumed alcohol, don't use the stove or the stove top. And that also goes for the oven. Frying, grilling, boiling, broiling, stay in the kitchen. If there's another task that needs to be done, make sure you delegate that to somebody else. Simmering, baking, roasting, make sure you check it regularly. Use those timers. And then, like I said, towels, oven mitts, wooden utensils, anything like that, paper, decorations, keep it away from your stovetop. So all that stuff that looks really nice to decor for your kitchen, especially around the holiday times, just clear that stuff away once you start cooking. And another big thing is make sure your smoke alarms are working. So make sure you test them, and so that they're working in case there is a problem, that they can notify you quickly. And if they do, make sure you have an exit plan and you get out. So when you cook with children, try to keep hot things and kids 3 feet away from the stove. Little hands like to help. I have kids myself, so they very much like to try to help. There are appropriate tasks to let kids help with, and then there's things that kids shouldn't be involved. So keep kids 3 feet away. It can happen so fast that a child grabs a pot or runs by and knocks a handle and ends up spilling burning liquid or burning food on themselves. And that's just not how we want to spend our Thanksgiving in the burn center. Steam splash from liquids like gravy or sauce from vegetables can cause serious burns. Make sure the floor is clear, which again can be hard, but whether it's pets or things or kids or toys or loose mats in the carpets in the kitchen, just keep all that stuff out of the way. Knives out of the reach of children, electric cord. So a lot of times we have a lot of things plugged in, like the knife to carve the turkey or blenders or things like that. So coffee makers, just make sure all that stuff is out of the way so it doesn't accidentally get knocked. Matches and utility lighters, a lot of candles around holiday season. So make sure that we're using candles safely. It's not near any curtains or anything like that. Make sure we're blowing candles out when we're not in the room. We should always be in the room when there's a candle lit. Never leave children alone. And again, make sure our smoke alarms are working. If you do have a cooking fire, there's a couple things we want to go over. First, just get out and close the door behind you. That is huge. The air movement, when you leave the door open, it kind of feeds the fire and can help it grow rapidly. And that can be a huge problem for firefighters. So the number one thing is get out, call 911, close that door behind you. If it's a small fire and you feel comfortable, keep a lid nearby like a grease fire. Don't pour water on a grease fire. Don't try to carry a grease fire pot outside or dump it down the sink. You can cause more problems. So use that lid, just like in this graphic, to smother the grease fire. We don't want to put a towel or anything on top of it. A lid that fits that pan, put it over, and then just leave it completely covered until it's cooled. And that dish is probably going to be done. You have to make something else. If it's an oven fire, turn off the heat, keep the door closed. Don't open the door to see if the fire is still there. Just keep it closed. We'd rather have an oven fire contained to the oven. If you open it, there's a good chance that you can become injured or it can spread to the cabinets around you. If you do feel comfortable and you have a fire extinguisher nearby, you can use that fire extinguisher. But again, we don't want people to delay getting out and calling the fire department and get injured because they tried to put the fire out themselves. If you are going to use a fire extinguisher, there's plenty of things on site or from our department learning how to use a fire extinguisher. It's the acronym PASS, P-A-S-S, and that's pull the pin, aim the fire extinguisher at the base of the fire, not the flames, but the bottom of the fire, squeeze the handle, and then sweep back and forth until the fire goes out. What a lot of people don't realize is fire extinguishers can expire, and it's not so much they expire, but they've got a powder, and that powder can become caked in the bottom. And so it's kind of like an aerosol can. If you don't shake it once a month, somewhat regularly, it gets caked so much that even when you have a fire, if it's been several years and you shake it, it's not going to come loose. So when you squeeze the handle, all that's going to come out is a little bit of powder and air. So if you do have a fire extinguisher, you're supposed to shake it on a regular basis, about once a month. But don't rely on that fire extinguisher necessarily to put the fire out. You need to have an exit plan. And again, make sure you've called 911. We don't mind coming out to check to make sure that the fire hasn't extended rather than you think everything's okay and it's not, and it ends up being a bigger problem. Especially having those smoke alarms, though, and exit drills in the home, especially in this time of season when you may have people staying at your house or you may be staying at somebody else's house that you're not familiar with. Just making sure everybody knows, if I was sleeping in this bedroom or this basement or wherever, how do I get out the quickest way possible? Is it going to be the normal entrance, like a front door or a garage, or is there a back door or a window to go out? So a lot of times we don't think about that, even on vacations. But this type of season, like I said, when we're staying places we're not used to, it only takes a few minutes just to consider those things. Kind of like when Susan was talking about things we don't normally think about. It's helpful to take a few minutes to think about those. And then turkey fryers. Turkey fryers are popular this time of year. There are several safety tips. Make sure it's on a level ground. Make sure it's at least 10 feet from your home because they do get hot. And in case there is any splashing liquid, don't overfill. There's going to be a fill line. Make sure you're using the appropriate oil. And the turkey needs to be completely thawed. If you put a frozen turkey in oil, it will cause the oil to splatter, which again can cause injury to the person, or it can cause that splattering liquid to light something else on fire. So make sure you're using your turkey fryer appropriately. The sides of the pot are going to be hot, so make sure you're using something, oven mitts or something appropriate in order to touch that side of the pot. And then there's some other stuff that's not necessarily fire safety, but we also are a combination fire department, meaning that we run emergency medical service calls. So make sure you store food appropriately, food that needs to stay cold. Don't let it just sit out for hours. Make sure the turkey thaws safely, that it's not sitting at room temperature. And there's plenty of websites that you can reference to how to thaw your turkey safely. I know some of the manufacturers have 800 numbers you can call during holiday seasons. Make sure that we're not preventing the spread of germs. So washing our hands after we touch raw food, cleaning kitchen surfaces, making sure the stuffing cooks thoroughly, especially if you're using the turkey and cooking the stuffing inside. And then take care of leftovers. And again, that kind of goes back to just not letting food sit around. When you get full and sleepy after that turkey, just go ahead and take a few minutes to put those leftovers away. Because again, the emergency room is not a fun place to spend the holidays. And I'm available for any questions. And thank you for the opportunity to share some of our fire safety tips tonight.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to say that was fantastic. And I'm very glad that we have people like you that run towards the things that a lot of people run away from. So we are very grateful to have people like you working to support Fairfax County. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I think that statement that you made about not cooking under the influence is huge. You always hear people, they're happy to see people, they're happy to watch the football game, they're happy to watch the parade, and then it turns into one beer, and then it turns into 2 beers. And, it's just not safe to do that while cooking. And I think that's just something that really gets overlooked because, people are just hanging out, and we see a lot of people say that it will never happen to them. And then it happens to them.
Yes.
So I know, I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir with this one, but it's just, fires are so scary. So I thought that was a fantastic presentation. And I actually learned something new. I didn't know that our fire extinguishers were powder at the bottom. So that shows that you are really bringing out new information. It's not stuff that everyone really knows. I also know that I need to start shaking my fire extinguisher every now and then, that I have not been doing that. So it is really fantastic that you're bringing this information out to the public that, might get overlooked, and then people don't have the things that they need when they need them. So
thank you. And in Fairfax, we do have a lot of, one other thing, just a lot of garden apartments, high-rise residential apartments, things like that. Closing the door is so important. It's important if it's a single-family dwelling, but there's been some devastating fires earlier this year at the beginning of the year in Philadelphia and New York that caused a large loss of fire. That type of devastation can be reduced by closing a door, especially if you're on the lower level of a building like that. If you leave the door open, it's not necessarily the fire that spreads to the next 29 stories. It's the smoke, and the smoke will spread in the hallways and the stairwells, and then other people above you and on your floor are not able to evacuate safely. And then it just causes a whole bunch of problems. So especially if you live in a building that houses other people, please, 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 the last thing you do, close that door on the way out.
See, that kind of stuff is so important. It's things that I think we take for granted on a day-to-day basis because, again, it comes back to the whole, I never think it's going to be me, and then it's me. No one wakes up and thinks that they're going to unfortunately end up in a house fire, and then they unfortunately do. And I know, we're getting ready to change the clock soon for maybe the last time for a very long time with the talk of time changes. So do you recommend that people really check their smoke alarms at time changes and that kind of stuff?
Yes, definitely check your smoke alarm batteries. There should be a smoke alarm in every sleeping area, in the kitchen and at least one on every floor. So depending on how your house is set up, if you don't have any sleeping areas in the basement or the first floor, one on every floor, one in the kitchen, and one in every sleeping area. Now, the one in the kitchen can kind of be tricky for people because if you overcook things a lot, you might be inclined to take the batteries out so you don't have to listen to it. So it shouldn't be right over your stove, but it should be somewhere near the kitchen. It's really counterproductive if you take the batteries out or take the smoke detector down on the one place that you're most likely to have a fire in your house. So that's important. A lot of the smoke alarms are going to 10-year batteries. They still need to be checked. So try to remember that. And also, again, smoke alarm maintenance that a lot of people don't know. You should vacuum your smoke alarm every once in a while because they can build up dust, and then that affects the sensors and it can affect how well they work. But when you test your smoke detector, a smoke alarm is an awesome time to remind your family, and especially if you have kids, where is our meeting place? So we do run into sometimes where maybe the kids go out one way and the parents go out other way and they can't find the kid, and somebody goes back inside to look for an animal or a family member when they're already outside, and that can cause significant injuries, and they were already out. So make sure you have a meeting place so somebody doesn't risk their life unnecessarily.
See, so important. It's just stuff that we don't think about, and it's not because it's unimportant. It's just, life gets busy. So I think that is a great reminder. I'm also a little scared because I have cats and I've never vacuumed around my smoke alarm. So that is on my to-do list this weekend now, because I know you said dust, but anyone that owns animals knows that their hair gets everywhere. Yes. So that is a valid and great point. No, thank you so much for being here, Tracey. This is a wonderful presentation, especially, with Thanksgiving and other holidays coming about. And it is informative but scary to hear how common fires are between November and December. But that is so important to bring out to the public. So we really appreciate you being here. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad to come back anytime. Thank you for doing this for the community, these monthly webinars. And if I don't talk to you before Christmas, water your trees if you have real trees, and get rid of them when they get dry. That's my Christmas message, spoiler alert.
Yeah, sentiment behind that tree is not worth risking the safety.
Yes.
If it's starting to dry out, it's time for it to go away. I think
fireplace ashes, same thing. Don't put them in a paper bag. Get them away from your house. Yes.
See, it's so important. So, no, that is a great point. And if I don't see you before then, thank you so much, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Everyone, thank you for tuning in tonight. This was wonderful. We really appreciate Susan and Tracey for their time. They are wonderful ladies inside and outside of webinars. And we really appreciate everyone that is tuning in live and everyone that is watching this afterwards. Thank you, everyone. Have a great November, and we will see you guys in December, where we're really going to get into winter weather safety as the cold really starts wrapping in. Thank you, and have a great night.